We are now 3 months past the Christmas weekend freeze of 2022, and it's the end of March, and the plants are beginning to leaf out. And in fact, spring has been early, and plants have leafed out 3 or 4 weeks ahead of time. And not only did we have Christmas damage freeze, but we also, just last weekend, had another frost that did a little more damage to some plants. Mostly cosmetic though in that case, and just some frozen leaves and things that will recover. But as far as Christmas damage goes, I think we're now to a point where we can make a valid assessment about plants that are dead or alive. One of the groups of plants that I was really concerned about in the freeze were the Japanese maples, and I have several here in the garden, small ones that I started a few years ago. But I was really worried that because Japanese maples are a thin-barked tree, that freeze at Christmas time might actually have split the bark and killed the trees outright. The good news is most Japanese maples came through in pretty good condition, and really what we're seeing is a little bit of tip dieback. A lot of these you don't even need pruners for. You can just snap them right off. They're brittle right where they're dead, and they'll just break right off. But it's a little cleaner to do it with your pruners. And so I just come in here and cut back to a point where I see good, in this case the bark is kind of reddish, but good live bark. The stems that are dead are very, very obviously brown. And so just a little clipping here and there on this Japanese maple is going to clean it right up. Some of the bigger Japanese maples didn't suffer any damage at all. One of my biggest Japanese maples, though, has one live limb on it, and that's all. So I say they didn't suffer as much damage. Most of them didn't, but a few of them did. And, you know, unfortunately, with the weather, there's just not anything that we can do to prevent it. And we just have to look at it as a gardening opportunity. Everyone has been wondering about their boxwoods, and I have this poor, unfortunate specimen here by my front gate that really took the brunt of the northwest wind during the Christmas freeze. I will start with some good news. I was in a garden on Friday, and we were looking at their boxwoods, and down in the boxwoods, 6 to 10 to maybe even 12 inches down in the boxwoods, there are little green buds beginning to sprout. So I wouldn't rule out the fact that the boxwoods, some boxwoods, may recover. This one, unfortunately, I do not think is going to recover, or at least not enough to try to salvage it. There are a few green stems still, and a few that are even beginning to leaf out a little bit, but about 80% of the plant really is dead. Another plant that I'm sure everyone has questions about, because almost all of us grow one type or another, are our hydrangeas. This happens to be a lace cap type hydrangea. It's a Hydrangea macrophylla, which is the same as some of the big mop-headed blue and pink hydrangeas that we grow, like Endless Summer, some of those. As you can see, there is nothing green on this plant, but what I can guarantee you is that underneath these leaves, which I will clean out in the next few days, there is live wood. So I will end up cutting these hydrangeas all the way to the ground, and by the end of the summer they'll be back up 2.5, 3 feet tall. They'll grow quickly. More than likely I won't have any blooms this year on the macrophylla types, and maybe even also on the serrata hydrangeas, which are the Japanese mountain hydrangeas, other lace caps. Our native hydrangeas, Hydrangea arborescens, which is Annabelle, and several others, Hass Halo, some that have the big mop heads, some that have lace cap flowers, they fared better during the freeze. They're native to our region, they're a little more cold hardy, and they did not get damaged. I'm just trimming out dead wood down to good green growth that's coming out, and I think they're all going to be fine. So this is one of our native hydrangeas, which is Hydrangea arborescens. This is a variety called Hayes Starburst, And you can see that I left the old flowers on during the winter because they at least offer a little bit of interest. But you can also see that they have not died back like the macrophylla hydrangeas and the serrata hydrangeas. So on these, just a quick cut down to where you see green growth coming out, and you'll inevitably have some little dead twigs and things that need to come out. But it's a pretty quick and easy pruning job on Hay Starburst, on Annabelle, and all of those popular hydrangeas. The same goes for varieties like Tardiva and Limelight. Even though those are not native, we're not seeing nearly as much damage. And just some top pruning back to a good solid set of buds that are greening up, and those should fare well and bloom well for you this summer. As we mentioned in our previous video, Aucubas were also very hard hit during the Christmas freeze. And you can see here that the foliage just turned black. It's kind of brown now, but it was really black for a long time. It has stuck to the plant, probably isn't going to fall off. And if you look closely at the stems, you can see where they're dark and discolored up in here, and where down further in the plant they begin to turn green. So in the case of plants like this, it's going to be a hard cut back. And if you look at the end of that stem, still black inside there, which means it has to go back even further. And we'll see if or where we find anything green. Another 2 or 3 inches and we still have a black center. Even further down. So what I'm probably going to end up doing on this is taking a pruning saw and coming right down here to the base of the plant. And there are dormant buds, and in fact, it is really tiny, but right here at the end of my pruners, there's a little green bud beginning to sprout. And so if I cut this plant back really hard with a 10-year-old root system under it, by the end of the summer, I would expect that it will be back up 12 or 18 inches tall, and it'll take 2 or 3 years to completely recover, but the good news is it will recover. I want to take a look at a different species of boxwood. This is Korean boxwood, and this happens to be a variegated one called Sunburst. But as you look here, you can see that there's new growth coming out almost all the way to the top, and very little permanent damage. Some of the leaves are a little bit burned. There's some spotting on some of them, and I think we will see them shed. But the stems are good and green, and the plant is budding out even all the way to the top. So the Korean boxwoods, green velvet boxwood, fared very well during the Christmas freeze. And some of the other varieties of Korean boxwood also looking really good. It's our American boxwoods, our traditional boxwoods, that have really suffered the most. You know, the Christmas freeze was such a unique and devastating event that even some really cold hardy plants suffered some damage. This lilac being a case in point. Now lilacs are really cold hardy, way on up into zone 3. But here we do have some damage. I'll come through with my pruning saw and cut some of this out. There's actually a really good example of bark split a little bit further down in the plant, right here on this trunk. That is from cold weather. And when that bark splits, it can do damage even to the cold hardiest of plants. I think this is a good example though for all of your trees and shrubs that are in your landscaping. Where you see green beginning to grow, even if you don't see green quite yet, go back like we showed you before, do a little thumbnail test, scratch, see if you can see green under that bark. As long as there's still some green, there is still some hope. Things that have no green at this point at the end of March, I think it's best to get your pruners out, your pruning saw. Some of those may be one cut at the ground, which is the hardest one of all to make. But as I said before, just remember that every plant loss is a gardening opportunity. They're not always easy to take, but there is some good news out there, and we just wanted to share it with you. If you liked this video, we've got a wide range of gardening related topics here on our channel. Home garden tours, plant showcases, tips from growers. Take a dive into our archive and be sure to click to subscribe so you can catch all of our new topics. Till next time.